Well, welcome back to the Yahowah blog. I'm your host, Craig Wynn. We're about to commence part 3 of what will be a comprehensive series, could be upwards of 50 programs devoted to the Shabuah harvest and an equal number allocated to Teruah. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot at stake. The timing is nigh. And so let's jump right back in. We were in the midst of considering what Yahweh, through his Torah teaching, had to say about the menu that should be prepared for Shabuah. It continues with, and one bull, each odd. The bull is par. It is from parar, which means either to be broken and divided, split, or to be fruitful and productive. It's one of those words in Hebrew that has a dark and light side, and therefore can be used to speak of, for example, the Adamah Parah, which is thought to be the red heifer, which is sacrificed for the final preparation of the mortal remnant of Israel to perfect them so that they're ready for the homecoming when Yahweh returns with the Mashiach Dod. And in that case, Adamah Parah is, Adamah means the bloody red man of the earth who has been productive and fruitful. And in this case, Par would be a bale of the bovine species, if you will, and it can signify either that which is divisive and split, and also that which is productive and fruitful. And the fact that it represents both makes it an ideal sacrifice, because we're eliminating that which is divisive and broken, if you will, because Israel has clearly broken the covenant with Yahweh. It's very clear what Yahweh thinks of "you're not my children" in Hosea. And the sacrifice, this item on the menu, if you will, of the par is representative of resolving that so that the children of Israel can be productive and fruitful again. So it is one bull representing that which is either frustrating and divisive, broken and ineffectual, or fruitful and productive. That bull, of course, since it's a par, is a male. And then it is bakar or bukur, which follows. And there are lots of potential meanings of this word. So I'm going to share all that could potentially fit in this context, because, well, my pay grade is not high enough that I'm going to suppose that God meant one and not the other and limit the potential for understanding. So it's a par, bull, a male, in the morning to encourage being perceptive, contemplative, and discerning, seeking out and considering the available information, and then responding appropriately. Ha, bakar, or bakur. They're written the same way, just vocalized differently. Looking to grow and to be fruitful, as the sun rises especially, thoughtful in the dawn's early light. From bakar, to inquire about, consider, and reflect upon even a herd mentality. Now, the potential interest here is that the Adamah Parah of on Teruah, which is the second of these two harvests, in 2033, just 10 days before Yahweh's return, is going to be offered. It's Yada, so I'm the volunteer, but my body is going to be bludgeoned by Hasatan, the adversary, and his minions as the sun rises on the Shabat of Teruah, which is a September 24th in 2033. It is also demarcated by a full eclipse of the sun. So this will be quite the spectacle. It's going to be on the far southern end of the Temple Mount. Once Alaska Mosque is completely gone, the Dome of the Rock will also be gone. There'll be a replica of the Tent of the Witness there on the Temple Mount. while Elia and I are serving as witnesses to call Yisrael home. But as this spectacle takes place of my bludgeoning, my sacrifice on the southern end of the Temple Mount, it will be in the morning, and it will be to a full eclipse of the sun, and it will be a sign for everyone to consider. It is going to be a time to respond appropriately, to look to grow and be fruitful as the sun rises, especially thoughtful in the dawn's early light. So Yahweh loves to foreshadow one event with another. And in these two harvests, his final Zeroah, the third of three, again, his Bashar, his herald, is the one who is orchestrating these two harvests. And on this one, he is foreshadowing what is going to happen on the next. And then he says, in addition to that, there will be two rams representing the upright pillar and the doorway, one who leads the flock, the framework of a door, robust health and empowerment. I suspect that the reason that the AL is doubled here, and I don't claim to have all the answers. That's not my job. My job is to render the important sections of Yahweh's Torah teaching and his prophets as accurately as possible, more accurately and more completely than has ever been done previously, to make certain that it is as consistent with the message that Yahweh actually delivered by removing all the diacritical markings to look at the root meanings of the letters themselves and the words that they can convey. That's why we looked at both Bokor and Bakar and previously, because we have to strip them of the rabbinical diacritical markings because there's no justification for them in the original text, and then to look to see which passages were altered in the Masoretic text where there is an older witness with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And then once we do that, to try to explain to the best of my ability as we grow through learning, this learning process, what is being conveyed. And all that is really necessary for me is to have compiled a base of knowledge sufficient to put the important pieces of this puzzle together, to frame the issue that God has conveyed to us, and then to reveal that portrait to you in this way at this time, literally becoming the sum total of the books that are behind me and on the shelf at yadayah.com. And so I can walk you through the possibilities, and we can think of through them ourselves to ascertain what each of them means. But my job here is not to be the answer man on everything. God did not want another prophet. He said there would not be another prophet. And in this particular case, a prophet would actually be counterproductive. And so he wants a witness. And he specifically said, this witness is going to learn what he needs to know by reading the written text that he has prepared from long ago. And so I do think that the reason for two rams is that you're not going to be part of the Shabuah harvest unless you have come to understand and have participated in Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. And it is on Pesach that Dode served as the Pesach El, the same term that is used here. And by doing so, he was the upright pillar of the tabernacle of God. He is the one who stood up for us so that we could stand with him. He is the one who opened the doorway to life. And the reason for two is not only do we have to observe what he did on Pesach, but it is the Pesach El, the Messiah Dode, David, who is returning on Yom Kippurim. And the purpose of this particular harvest of Shabuah is not to remove us from that event, but to make certain that we're there to celebrate that event. Now, that's something you've probably not considered, even if you've been in the covenant family for a long time. It isn't to take you away from the world so that you are now no longer part of the remaining three fulfillments of the remaining three Moed Mikre. It's to make certain that you are there for those things. Because God wants to have a marvelous homecoming. And one way to assure that is that if everyone who is part of his covenant family, who has stayed the course, who continues to contribute to part of that family, who is actively engaging and trying to help us accomplish this mission of reacquainting Yisrael with Yahweh's name and with the Masiach Dod and with the conditions of the covenant, as well as within the purpose, excuse me, of the Mikre and their timing. And so the best way to do that is to have an event where those who are most active in the covenant are removed from a time just prior to the time of Jacob's troubles, when death is going to become commonplace, particularly of those who are either affiliated with Yisrael, which we all must be, or is an advocate for Yisrael, as we all are, or we're not part of the covenant. So understand, if you harbor any animosity for Israel, in fact, if your primary objective in what you're doing isn't to awaken and restore Yisrael, then you're kidding yourself about the covenant. It's one of the reasons why when the Mama God cult emerged and started to attack me, one of the first things I said, the Shavuot harvest isn't yours. And that's a really, really important distinction. We are being gathered in not to be taken away from Yisrael and Jacob, but to be there for Yisrael and Jacob when it matters. And part of this is that Yahweh recognizes that the job he has asked me to do, with hundreds and hundreds of prophecies pertaining to this particular job, is an exceedingly difficult one. And there isn't any chance, even with all of the input and support of his 7 Ruach, that if I were asked to do this over the next 8.5 years without some opportunity to recharge, I couldn't do it. I mean, as you saw from the last program that I did in the evening prior, it's really all I can do. And the fact that I'm being attacked by people who formerly called themselves covenant, who learned everything they know about Yahweh from me, is also worrisome. This is difficult. And so unless Yahweh provides this opportunity for me to recharge with those members of the covenant family who have been so supportive now, then coming back with Elia, I'd be at such a disadvantage. I might as well be the monkey on a chain as he orchestrates things. That's not the way God works. So this harvest is exceedingly important, because when we come back on the 1st of Abib in 2030 to an exceedingly hostile audience in Yisrael, we're going to need every ounce of our God-given strength to combat all of the naysayers and the screamers. I mean, as you know, I spend hours a day in social media building the audience for this message so that more people have the opportunity to capitalize on what Father and Son are offering. And it's really nasty out there. I would go as far as to say that there are 2 billion progressives that have lost the ability to think, that are screaming for Israel's annihilation. And there are 2 billion Muslims that want the same thing. And there's a lot of self-serving people in between, and every manner of cult and religious group and conspiracy. swirling around, mixing things up, confusing people at a time when a very clear message from Yahweh is necessary. So the second ram in this case is Dod again, because he's returning on Yom Kippurim, and Shabuah is not only enabled by the sacrifice of the Pesach El, but it is to celebrate the return of the Pesach El and Dod as the Messiah. And so that happens to be my best understanding as to why we have the two. Now, there's also, the dark side of Par, and that Par bull could represent the Mitzrayim that is finally being taken out of God's people. When Yahweh brought them out of Mitzrayim, he said, I had to bring them out with a resolute hand, because they were so irascible. There's so much Mitzrayim still in them that they were never, I think 3 of them, Yosha, Moshe, and Caleb were the 3 that finally endured to the end, because most of them were way too irascible. They had way too much bull in them, and the number 1 cult among the pharaohs was the Apis the bull cult, and it's why when Aaron led the religious rebellion against Moshe immediately upon arriving around the base of Mount Choreb, the first thing they made was a golden calf. The golden calf symbolized the Apis the bull worship of Pharaoh, and they were enslaved to Pharaoh. And so that's part of the reason here. They need to get rid of that bull that they have dragged with them all of this time. So while these, I think, are all interesting possibilities, the other answer is found, and the one that is the most poignant, is found in Kara Leviticus 16. Speaking of what Aaron, which is the alternative, was instructed to do in order to foreshadow not only what the lamb would accomplish to prepare God's people, but what the purpose of the bull would be on the mercy seat, the Kapporeth, of the Ark of the Covenant for the day of reconciliations. So let's consider that. It says, then Yahweh spoke to Moshe immediately after the death of Aaron's 2 sons. Aaron's 2 sons did the same thing that Miriam did. They tried to usurp authority, where they claim, everybody, when you're around somebody that has a profoundly close relationship with Yahweh, who has learned thousands of things about God and the relationship he's seeking to establish with us and his timeline and approach that have never been considered previously. And this one individual reveals literally thousands of them and provides the first really accurate and amplified translation of Yahweh's testimony ever, reintroduces Yahweh's name, and then discovers things as profound as that Dod is the Messiah and the Son of God who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and he is the one who is returning on Kippurim. When you do that, when you have somebody doing that kind of thing, that brilliant light attracts a lot of undesirables. And it's filled with people who have these giant cavernous holes in their souls, who are looking for some way to fill that void in their lives. And when I began, that was the first group to do that, was a conspiracy cult called An Unpopular Truth. And as it turns out, many, almost most, of the worst perpetrators now of this rebellion came from that conspiracy cult that I had to disassociate with and to jettison and to literally burn their house down. And so when you see this kind of thing happen, you should expect lots of people claiming that authority and power for themselves. The conspiratorial cult, once I burned their house down, they went about claiming my translations as their own. In this particular case, this group is misappropriating what they have learned from me. Now, in the case, the reason I bring that up is in the case of Aaron's sons, they approached the presence of Yahweh and died because they were not authorized to do so. They were not prepared to do so. They were acting on their own initiative, as this new cult is advocating for Spirit Mom. And Yahweh takes that stuff really seriously. You know, what happened to those who decided that they were going to do a little worship around the golden calf? They were all killed. What happened around those who decided that they would advance the Lord and Asherah, which is the Mother of God, Queen of Heaven, the Madonna child, the model for the Christian Holy Spirit, and the Miriam, the mother of Jesus? Same thing that we're dealing with in this cult. He killed them all. Everyone who advocated it, he killed them all. And we are now translating a whole swath of material from the Torah where Yahweh is very explicit as to what he wants done in these situations. And it follows this example. Immediately after the death of Aaron's sons, when they approached the presence of God and died. And everybody would say, well, there's nothing wrong with approaching and want to be near Yahweh. There's nothing wrong with studying the Torah and sharing what we learn. Beg to differ. Moshe was the bright light. Yahweh spoke through him. He revealed his Torah guidance through him. And so all of those around him that wanted to be big shots and pretend that, well, they also speak for God, they also approach God, they also draw near to him, actually her in their case, I'm really sorry. This is what happens to them if it's just a matter of they made a really stupid decision but didn't act upon it beyond that, death. In Miriam's case, it's eternal estrangement. And she didn't even open her mouth beyond saying, I too speak for God. She never said anything. Therefore, Yahweh said to Moshe, speak to Aaron, your brother, so that he does not come at any time to the set apart place of the home through the curtain to the presence of the mercy seat. Tell him. Same thing will happen to him. God doesn't mess around on this stuff. In fact, he tells us, show no mercy. Do not pity them. Deal with them this harshly. This notion of, oh, God's so loving. Oh, Mother God, we are so grateful for your love and your acceptance. No. That's not the real God. That's the religious God. I'm sorry. He is not all accepting. There is a mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. And Aaron and his sons were precluded from approaching it unless it was authorized by Yahweh and done in a specific way to teach us, not for them, but to teach us about what was going to occur and how Yom Kippurim is going to play out in year 6000 Yah 2033 when Dode David performs in this role. So you got to be really careful that you don't just pluck something out of obscurity and say, oh, that's my agenda right there. You got to be really careful with this stuff. There was a period of time, too, really, where Yahweh's approach to those who were claiming either his message for themselves or were twisting it in any shape or form was just cut and dry. You do it, it's instant estrangement from the community, death, disease. You're told to shout out a warning about them. They're unclean. I mean, For example, with Miriam claiming that we too speak for God. She was struck with leprosy. And then there is and far worse than that, God said, even if her father spit in her face, I would still be this blunt and this raw with her. She is diseased. And he went on and on about his disgust and made a point in Devarim, speaking through Moshe, that she exemplifies divorce, separation from God, that is unresolved. And in the Torah, there's really no one else that's afflicted with leprosy. There's a king later on, but that's in the prophets. And so when you read what Yahweh says about leprosy, which only pertains to Miriam, and Miriam's lone issue is claiming to also speak for God, beyond God's chosen implement, Moshe. It goes on and on to say what you have to do, the response that you're supposed to have. And it isn't to back away and look the other way and play all nice and pretend it didn't happen. It isn't to ignore it, to burn the damn house down. And God's going to deal with their souls. And it isn't a pretty picture. It's appropriate. So, make it really clear. Tell him he does not come at any time to the set apart place of the home, can't be with God, through the curtain into the presence of the Kaporth, the mercy seat, which provides the benefit of the relationship upon the Ark of the Covenant. That way he will not die. Only if he doesn't do it will he not die. Indeed, I will appear visible within a cloud above the mercy seat. In this, Aaron will come to the set-apart place with a bull, a par, from the bakar, from the herd, representing that which is broken and frustrating, and that which can be productive and fruitful. For having been wrong, for having missed the way, and a lamb. Therefore, if you are in opposition to God's chosen implement, in this case, Moshe, today's case, it would be Yada. There is only one way for you to approach God again, and that is by the sacrifice of the bull and the lamb. And since the bull represents the lamb, and since it's the bull that you're pissing off and trying to degrade, guess what? You aren't going to get this accommodation. You need to be thinking about what you're doing. To yourselves, I don't care. To others, I do care. For being wrong and for missing the way. So we have to be prepared. God's children have to be prepared to exist in the presence of Yahweh. That is the whole purpose of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, preparing us to be part of the Shabuah harvest. But again, you can't participate in Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim unless your prime objective gets out of your own way and it focuses on restoring the relationship between Yahweh and Yisrael, so that you're making this journey through life with Yisrael, which of course they're not doing. And so you can't be part of it. But Shabuah is a direct result of what the Lamb accomplished and what Dod did to take our guilt and deposit it in Sheol, and then to fulfill Bikurim, firstborn children. That is how we are prepared to participate. But even then, there will be a harvest, Shabuah, and a gleaning, the evening of Towrah in 2033, the September 23rd, a Friday evening. But those who are left behind, that very tiny gleaning that between Elia and myself that we have awakened in the last 3.5 years before Yahweh's return with Dod, they will be harvested so that they also will be there coming from above as part of this wonderful homecoming, because the Shabuah harvest did souls, and then these Towrah harvest souls are all going to create this arena of light, if you will, this cathedral of light. I shouldn't use the term cathedral, but this grand spectacle, an amphitheater of light around the central players, Yahweh and his son Dod, as this all transpires. But the majority of the remnant of Yisrael is not going to make that harvest. They're still going to be in Jerusalem. And now it's now or never. And they are the adulterous woman. They need to be cleansed, and cleansed now, with just 10 days left before Yahweh's return. And that is why the bull, as the Adamah Parah, the bloody red mat of the earth, who is a fruitful and productive bull, offers his life as the second of the two people that Yahweh has asked to make this kind of sacrifice to fulfill the Moed Mikre. So we have been prepared and will be prepared to enter the presence of Yahweh under these very specific conditions. And there are no shortcuts. There's no claiming them as your own. You can't be, this is our harvest, and we're going to be singing praises to Spirit Mom as we go our merry way, because no. Your motivation has to be with Israel, or you're not going to be there at all. So even today, the Ark of the Covenant no longer has Yahweh's presence on it. It will return to it. But it sits in what I think is Jeremiah's grotto. I have every reason to think that it was discovered underneath the place where Dod offered his Bashar body, his life on Pesach, and that it will be taken out and shown to the world either sometime during that last 3.5 years, or at the point of Dod's return, because he is going to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant, and therefore it has to be available. It has to exist. And that is the most likely place for it. And if someone were to say, I really want to go there and check that out, I want to get a permit to dig and find it. First, you'd probably be precluded, but if you actually succeeded, you would endure the same fate as Aaron's sons. So I am convinced it is currently protected within Mount Moriah. And this is why Dod not only fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, Bakodim, but he will do these very things that are prescribed here in the Torah to prepare his people for Yahweh's arrival on Kippurim, because they are not able to exist in Yahweh's presence, and his arrival would kill them if this final mortal remnant of Yisrael doesn't benefit from the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. Now, God does a lot of things with it. It's the sacrifice of one person doesn't cause the remnant to be clean. It's what God does with that sacrifice. It's just like the sacrifice of Dod's Bashar in year 4000 Yah, 33 CE, accomplished nothing apart from what Yahweh did with it. And with what Yahweh did with it, it opens the door to heaven and to eternal life. With what Yahweh will do with this, particularly with Eliah serving as the master of ceremonies, is going to cleanse Yisrael, because it's not just the sacrifice. The body has there's very specific instructions with hyssop and a toabah, which, by the way, is also the only way to cure the estrangement of leprosy. Something to think about if you're part of the rebellion. And that's only associated with the sacrifice of two individuals, Dode and myself. But Yahweh is actually going to ignite the fire. The flames are going to be racing skyward. And he is going to unleash torrents of water from underneath the Temple Mount. They're going to rush over mixed with that ash and with the singeing flames. And it's going to purify the remnant of God's people. Well, it washes away and incinerates those who have come to harm them. So there's a lot going on. And I want to tell you, if you're part of one of the two harvests prior to it, you're going to want to be in this theater of light watching these events. I mean, the very moment my Bashar is sacrificed, my soul will be released. I'm going to be there with you, watching it myself. So Yahweh refers to what we prone to call a temple as to be a home for his Shem name. He also views it as a place for his covenant family to live. As the beneficiaries of the covenant and the Mikra, we're invited inside to enjoy our Father's company. And sometime between this very moment, with the flames and the water, cleansing waters and the great spectacle and the oratory of Eliah reprising his role against the religious and political establishment of Israel, with the Asherah, mother god, and Baal, Lord worship, all the way back then, 2 millennia, 888 years prior to this particular date, and that's not by coincidence. What we're going to see here, that's 40 Yobel, 888 years, that's all not by coincidence, is that sometime around this period, since the Temple Mount has been purified and cleansed of all of the Islamic scars, that replica of the tent of the witness, of the restoring testimony, where Eliana will be hanging out probably with additional members of the covenant family during this period, it's going to be replaced. Yes, by a new home for Yahweh's name and for his family, comprised of light, because that is the best structure for a family comprised of energy, of light to reside. And that is going to be a spectacle all in its own. So within this Ark of the Covenant, by the way, we're going to find the original, well, we can't find the original two tablets because Moshe shattered them when he saw his brother Aaron, the alternative, dancing around a golden calf that they had made, the bad side of the bull, if you will. And he broke the first ones, but the second ones are just as good as the first ones. I don't know if Yahweh made any edits or improvements on it, other than he might have added the fathers corrupt their children to the third and fourth generation on it. But nonetheless, my guess is it was identical to the second set. They're going to be inside of the Ark of the Covenant. The original autograph that Moshe scribed of the Torah is going to be there too. Isn't that going to be exciting? Just marvelous. Now, what's interesting about the original autograph of the Torah is you say, whoa, wow, wouldn't you love to have that? There were times I said, I'd love to be able to take pictures of it and then be able to translate the original. But the fact is, by this time, we're not going to need any of that. I was literally going to write a copy of his Torah inside of us. We will be totally fluent and in the original Hebrew that he used to convey his name and his Torah teaching. And so we're going to have him and his teaching and guidance incorporated into our very lives, into our existence. Anyway, the top cover on the chest of the Ark of the Covenant is actually a seat. The two sets of cherub wings, go along the backside, if you will, coming out this way, and then there's two wings going this way. So it's kind of sort of like armrests on the side and a backrest and in the back. It's going to be a very comfortable place to sit. I guess everything's comfortable if you're comprised of light, but nonetheless, it'll be a beautiful place. It happens to will also serve, I think, as Dod's glorious seat of honor. I think it's going to be big enough that he will encourage us to sit alongside. So I think it's going to be this marvelous place to actually bask in the moment, if you will. So this whole thing is symbolic of the covenant, with the Qatsyr serving as the means to fulfill. This mercy seat is the means to fulfill Qatsyr. Qatsyr and Qatsyr are on the same basis, meaning to reconcile. It is where Yisrael, the individuals who engage and endure with God, will enjoy that very benefit. Now, knowing that Yahweh told us that Aaron had been wrong with the golden calf, a idolatrous bull, and his insurrection against Moshe with his sister, we don't have to worry about Yahweh telling us that he had been wrong there, because Aaron goes, "Oh boy, I was stupid. Oh, I don't do that, please. I was wrong. I won't do that again." I mean, he blathered every confession you could probably admit. I mean, so he just immediately came clean and said, "Okay, that was really stupid. I won't do that ever again." So Yahweh wanted to come up with a remedy that would underscore his, I wrote here some time ago, distaste for rebellion, for religion and rebellion. That's sort of funny under the circumstance, because it isn't distaste. He's appalled by it. And he is angry to the point of not just rebuking those who've done so, but pulverizing them, incinerating them, bludgeoning them, striking them, showing no pity for them. Reason this is so serious is that there have been very few authenticated voices of Yahweh that he specifically said, "This is my guy. I'm speaking through him. You need to listen." And there have been billions who have played the role of, well, God speaks through me too, who have created religious gods and goddesses. And so with so few authorized and actually speaking for him, and billions playing the other role and eating around the edges and adding confusion to the mix, God is a lot more than irked. He is exceedingly angry. In fact, one of our programs, I got a little worked up, and I was showing my righteous indignation, if you will, which is a pleasant term for I was really pissed off. I stopped and said, "Man, maybe I should apologize for being this angry, but no. You think that I'm angry? Wait till you get a load of Yahweh's response. I'm a pacifist in this stuff by compared to him. Well, not too much of a pacifist. I've spent now 23 years trying to model my reactions, my response, my attitude, my words, every aspect of my life for the last 23 years has been geared to modeling my life after the example of Moshe, Dod, and mostly Yahweh. And so when you see me passionate about something, I'm conveying Yahweh's passion. When you see me angry, I'm conveying Yahweh's frustration. It's a very serious undertaking. It was at all 3 points. When Moshe was first revealing the Torah and liberating the children of Israel so they might have access to the promised land. With Dod, so that Israel could be united again, so they could establish their presence in Jerusalem, so that the top of Mount Moriah could be prepared for the home for Yahweh's family, and so that we would have so many marvelous prophecies and this tremendous example in Dod to emulate, and then to see how the Son of God came to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. This, in the middle of this period of 6,000 years, is just such an important moment, just as Moshe was. But, it's hard to speak about this because I'm the chosen implement, and it's very uncomfortable for me to share this with you, but Yahweh has made it crystal clear for us. If it weren't for what we're doing together, everything Moshe accomplished, everything Dod accomplished, would be for naught. There would be no Shabuah harvest. There would be no Teruah harvest. There'd be no sacrifice of the Adam of Parah. There would be no mortal remnant that is saved of Yisrael. The time of Jacob's troubles would end in total calamity. There would be no return of God on Yom Kippurim, and there would be no re-entry into the garden on Sukkah. It would not occur. No one knew Yahweh's name. No one understood what Dod had achieved. No one understood the timeline. No one had been there prepared for it. All the things that are needed to know how to participate in the covenant, how the Moed Mikre enable our participation in the covenant. Not only how these events were fulfilled, but what they mean to our lives. None of it would have been known. And I can say that emphatically because in the 2,500 years, and in some cases 3,000 years, and in others even 3,400 years, from the time the revelations were made to the time they were explained in a way that God's people could capitalize upon them, and somebody was actually speaking for Yahweh again, that no one knew. And Yahweh made it very clear. No one is willing to listen to me. No one is willing to act upon my testimony. And so had he not intervened in this way, had he not provided his 7 Ruach to fulfill this mission, had those books behind me not been written, had all the knowledge from writing those books not become present here, should this medium that I'm using now to speak to you directly, face to face, not be available, it would all be for naught. Satan would win. And that's why God is so serious about what we're doing. That is why when someone challenges any one of these 3 individuals, God is relentless. The answer is not only no, but hell no. A Ba Pa Par Ben Bakar, representing what was broken and frustrating and that which is fruitful and productive, in violation of the agreement and to mend the agreement. It's all offered for your consideration so that we can appreciate how religion has caused so many to be la chata, to be wrong, to miss the way, and yet to prepare them so that they can come clean, as in the case of the adulterous woman of Numbers 5, in time to be betrothed to the returning Messiah and King. Don't. Cleansed of religion with the El, the protector of the flock of the Passover lamb, opening the doorway, and by the bull. In this case, in the end, the Adamah Parah, and as it relates to the mercy seat, the par. And don't get hung up that one is feminine, the other one is masculine. It's talk about the same thing, same individual. Yahweh uses many feminine terms like Zeroah for men. They convey aspects of those men. In this case, you have to be nurturing to facilitate a productive harvest. I mean, I'm almost mothering the covenant family. Yahweh is your father. I'm here to mother you and to nurture you, to wean you from milk unto solid food, so that that you're prepared for the harvest. It's, and you look at ancient times, men were the hunters, but the harvest is of barley and wheat and of olives. It is women who stayed and worked in the fields, who cleared those fields of the weeds, who nurtured those products. It is the women who harvested the grain and winnowed the crop. You even see it today. And so the Zeroah, who would be the one cultivating this harvest, is going to have those feminine characteristics to prevail. Linen, which is also important here, is made from the fibers of flax. The flower which blooms a bright blue to usher in the timing of Pesach, Matzah, and Purim. It is also from the flax that the wicks on the menorah would be fabricated. This beautiful stylized menorah over my left shoulder, or screen right for you, providing light. The flowing garments that would be indicative of being dressed in light after having been cleansed, not only by Chag Matzah, but again on Teruah. Now, since I've just mentioned that symbol over my head, there are a number of things on that top shelf that you may be wondering about. That dark form that's up there is an iron meteorite. And I have it there because I know that at one time that meteorite made an enormously bright streak across the sky, as my life is supposed to represent for you this brilliant streak across the heavens to point you in the right direction to come home. Sitting before that meteorite is one of my treasured possessions. A little piece like this of white limestone. It comes from the bluff behind which my Messiah and King was tortured by the Romans on Golgotha. One of my very favorite things. The man there is not Atlas. He's not holding the world on his shoulders. No, he's doing this. He's pushing the world away. For us to be part of Yahweh's covenant family, to do this job, we must push the world away. We stand apart from it. And it is this that Yahweh wants to see from us. That coral there is a sign of early life and the beauty of the seas that surround me, and of the restorative nature and the life-giving nature of water, and that blue nature of it being the ultimate solvent, the very water that Yahweh was going to use to cascade off of the Temple Mount to cleanse his people. And the last thing there is another treasure. It's my wife's piece of art, and it represents not only the three great epochs between Eden and Abraham, between Abraham and Dode, and between Dode and myself, as we strive to bring God's family back home. So anyway, that's what's there. It, in case anyone was wondering why it was there, that those are the symbols of those things. I've invited you into my home just as you've invited me into your home. I thought you might want to know. Now, it was Zechariah that we came to realize that Dode would be fulfilling Aaron's role, although I can tell you most assuredly that Dode is a very significant upgrade from the alternative. And this is where we came to appreciate that after the high priest was cleansed and dressed, he would need the headband. And that particular passage in Zechariah, it's interesting because it says that this Yahusha, which is the closest word in the Hebrew prophets to the name that they picked, the Christian community picked for their Iusus. And it says, he's just filthy. He's disgusting. He's completely unqualified for this job. There's a lot of people that said, see, there is a reference to Jesus right there in the prophets. You can't tell us he's not named. Okay, I'll give you that one. You take it and run with it. It says he's disgusting, totally unqualified, which is why Dode needs to perform in that role. And it says of him, he should wear a covering of linen, which is set apart. The linen undergarments should be on his body, along with the linen sash, which he shall tie and wear, in addition to a linen headband. He should wrap these set-apart garments around himself, and he should bathe his body in the waters and then put the clothing on. Well, there's going to be a lot of waters to be cleansing because of what Yahweh was going to unleash from the Temple Mount. But this is symbolic of what Dode's going to do. And you might say, wait a minute, Dode's not a Lowy. He can't do the priest. Oh, yeah. Maybe you ought to read the history, because Dode did this very thing. He dressed in the role of a high priest previously, danced all around as the Ark of the Covenant was being brought into his home, the city of Dode. So he has done this before. As in all things with Yah, there's always a dress rehearsal, a prophetic pronouncement of what's going to occur, so that we understand it, we don't miss the point. So this is how we should expect to see the Messiah upon his return with Yahweh during Kippurim. No longer serving as the Lamb, the Son of God will shepherd us into the promised land by fulfilling the Torah yet again. Then from the community of the eternal and restoring witnesses of the children of Israel, he should acquire 2 tempestuous goats, a pair of shaggy and devilish, stubborn and demonic goats, for being wrong and for missing the way, but only 1 lamb to ascend. So, you know who is identified as a goat in the Torah and prophets? Actually, it'd be in the prophets because he wasn't back there in the Torah days, but in the prophetic discourse, the man who is known for wearing goat fur, hide, hair, whatever it is that goats have. Who was that? Eliah. So are we being told here that Eliah looked a little shaggy? Yeah, maybe. Devilish? No. Stubborn? Probably not. But this is, again, the way that Yahweh works. He wants those that he has chosen to celebrate this relationship with and to teach Israel to be willing to bear the guilt of his people. Dode did. I will. And so the reason that a goat is prescribed here is that Elia is that goat. He is also going to be offered as a sacrifice. Now, is he a meaningful sacrifice? No, it's kind of like my contribution here on Kippurim. It's a few drops of blood that is sprinkled on the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. And in this particular case, you'll find that one of the goats gets away. That's the scapegoat, and it is a little of Eliah's blood that will be, blood is the symbol of life. And so for a Bashar to offer some of his blood for the metaphor, filling the Torah's metaphor of life, is a small price to pay. Happy to do it. So the lamb to ascend, of course, is the AL representing Dode. So it says that Aaron should approach with, drumroll please, a bull. And all that are represented by Aaron need to approach by the bull. What did Aaron do during the rebellion when Miriam and he came and said, don't we also speak for God? Aaron immediately came clean. He said, boy, I was really stupid. I'll never do that again. And so it is possible for Aaron to approach, but only on the basis of offering the bull. This guy. So, while there is no hope for the Miriam of the nest, there is hope for the Aarons of the nest who come clean, who admit they were wrong, who leave, and who straighten up such that the bull is willing to make this sacrifice for them and include them in that sacrifice. So it is the bull that Aaron must approach with. Doesn't say that he needs to go kill a bull and then that'll work. He says he has to approach with a bull, par. And it's because he was wrong, because he missed the way, chata'a. It's to resolve his iniquity, to earn a pardon for having gone astray, and as a means to benefit from the relationship for himself. This is the only answer for Aaron. For the Aarons of the world out there who are dunderheads, who say and do stupid stuff, who fall off the wagon, who go astray, who are just foolish. But in the end, somehow manage to say, okay, that was stupid, I shouldn't have done it, and arrive with the bull. It's a very piercing prophecy for many of you who are listening now. That bull was for himself. It wasn't for the children of Israel. It was for the rebellious one. And on the letter that these folks wrote, they claim that the Adam of Parah dies for himself, not according to God. And he shall provide reconciliation, this is now the bull, through this, and for his benefit. And for the house and the family, Korah called out Leviticus 16:6. So Yisrael is to be Ida, a community of eternal and restoring witnesses who communicate the enduring testimony of Yahweh. Well, that lasted about 15 minutes. Yisrael, the reason I'm here is you haven't honored your commitment. You haven't fulfilled your calling. This was your purpose. You need to reclaim it. And you can only reclaim it by coming to acknowledge Yahweh's name, choosing to engage in his covenant by attending his Moed Mikre as they were laid out and designed, and you need to come with the bull. Now, there is one Ida today. Soon there will be two, and eventually there will be many. Now, that does not mean that any of us act alone. I began and I had a team of 7 spirits, and that was good enough. And along the way, Yahweh has brought extraordinary people to my side so that you might know Yahweh, so that you might hear this message, so that you might have access to these books. Now, the entire process with the cleansing of the high priest and resolving his propensity to be wrong was designed to facilitate reconciliation for the children of Israel, because they've been wayward and irascible for a long, long time. From the bull to the lamb and the scapegoat, and from the linen apparel to the purpose of the mercy seat, the process underlying Kippurim is being presented for our consideration, and it is being tied to Shabuah and to Teruah. You know, the bull is here as part of Shabuah to remind us of what's going to happen and prepare us for what's going to happen on Teruah, so that we can be there on Kippurim to witness all of this materialize. God has done everything he can do to tell us what we need to know, to remind us of what he told us, and then to tell us again so that it gets through our thick skulls, particularly the recalcitrant and stubborn, stiff-necked people of Yisrael for whom we serve. This is all part of what Yahweh explained through Zechariah. It is where we discovered that Dod will fulfill this prophecy. Further, by coming to appreciate the bulls and the goats' purpose during Kippurim, pursuant to the mercy seat, the Kipporeth of the covenant, we are properly positioned to understand why the bull became part of the menu during Shabuah, why the bull returns for Teruah, and why the bull makes one more appearance at Yom Kippurim. The bull is part of the process from this point on. The bull is reflecting the sun's light. The bull is the king's herald. The bull is now Yahweh's voice. And he is the Adamah Parah, the man of the earth, who God is making exceedingly fruitful and productive. This is the conclusion of this, the third portion of the Yahweh blog devoted to Shabuah, the Qatsyr harvest. I thank you very much for listening and putting up with me going on so many journeys along the side of the path so that you could take in the full scene along the way and appreciate every nuance of what God was communicating and offering. I think it's the great joy of this voyage of discovery, is to see it all in all of its glory. So So I thank you for listening, for inviting me into your home, for being part of Yahowah's family, and for allowing the Yahowah blog to be part of your lives. I am Craig Wynn. Good night.